Welcome to Coffee with Val, the podcast with coffee aroma. Today's episode is very, very special because I'll be interviewing one of my friends. Her name is Sol Lagunas. Welcome to the podcast, Sol.
I'm so happy to be here, Vale.
I'm so happy to have you here and also that you said yes. So thank you so much for being here. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. My name is Sol. That name has a little history, but my name is Sol. I live in Chicago, Illinois. Val and I met through an e-group, Bible study, and we've been friends since.
How do you become a nurse?
I hold many hats. I like to call myself a multifaceted individual because I am a mom. I have 3 little ones. I'm a wife. I am a nurse, as Val mentioned, and I also have my own podcast. So I love creating content. I love getting to know people and networking. I became a nurse back in 2017. So I've been a nurse for 6 years. I'm trying to count. This year will be 7. And yes, and the reason why I went into nursing, it was funny because I know things happen for a reason. You know, God puts us in situations that He knows we will be able to handle. And so when I started college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was in and out of college for many, many years until finally I decided I had to do something. So I don't have the typical nursing was the first choice. That's not my story. I happened to land in nursing because I needed a job and I needed to provide. So fast forward to 6 years being a nurse, I know exactly why I became a nurse. I love serving people. I love educating those who are not aware of what's going on medically with their loved ones. And so although it appeared to be an accident that I landed in nursing, I know exactly why. It was part of my life. And so with that being said, I've done I worked in many departments of nursing, and currently I am in the hospice nursing department. And so I really, really enjoy, although there is a lot of emotions in hospice, I really enjoy being a part of that family's journey during the most vulnerable and difficult time in their life. So that is me. That is Nurse Sol.
In private, but do you want to tell us the background behind your name?
Sure. My name is Marisol. My dad chose that name, or at least that's what my mom told me, right? She said he chose that name, and I have an uncle who is in heaven now. He passed away a few years back, and every time I would see him, he would say, I wanted your parents to name you Misol, but your dad wanted Marisol. And so I lost that fight, but I will always call you Misol. And so when he passed, it was very difficult because now I wondered, who would call me Misol, right? And so 9 years ago, I met my soulmate, the love of my life. His name is Rodrigo. And I don't know how, but he said that I was his sol, tú eres mi solecito, And so it gave me that comfort of okay, there's there is a God, because I'm sure He's speaking to my husband, my uncle speaking to my husband through him. And so I felt like it was it was just like the perfect cherry on top to my thought of like, who was gonna call me Sol? No one's gonna call me Sol now. And he gave me that nickname, so we're sticking with it.
I love it. And for the English speakers or listeners, Sol in Spanish is sun. So mi sol is like my sun, or solcito is like little sun or something like that. So it's super sweet. I love the story. I love it. And moving to our next question. I don't know if the listeners know about what type of nurse is the kind of nurse that you are. But if you can explain us in short, what is your role within the nursery? And what are the challenges that you might face if you want to become a nurse? What were the challenges that you had to face?
Yes. So there's many departments of nursing. There is labor and delivery nurses who help bring babies into the world. And in my situation, I am a hospice nurse who helps the dying patient to die peacefully. And so there are many challenges in my specific department. As far as emotional challenges, I feel like being a hospice nurse, educating families while their loved one is dying is very difficult, emotional. And so I had to take care of my mental health very, very well to ensure that, you know, all the emotions were not, they didn't stay within me. Like I would be able to leave them at work and go home and have a nice, clear, I don't want to say happy, but just a good mindset to come into my house and not pour those emotions into my family. So hospice is my calling. I will say this over and over and over again. Hospice found me. I didn't find hospice, and I've been doing hospice nursing for 3 years. And part of the challenges as a new nurse or going into the nursing world has been really just I don't know how to say, like, nowadays the culture has changed. We went from being a very respected career or professional to now being targeted, because we are the middle person between the patient and the doctor. And so a lot of the times we are the ones that have to give difficult news to the families. And so we get a lot of the emotional burden, like all the, you know, people are grieving when their loved one is dying. And so part of the grieving stage is transferring their emotions onto us. So it could be anger, it could be depression, and so we get a lot of that. And even I feel like even in any department of nursing, when you want to become a nurse, you have to have a really good, I would say a really strong mindset and have a good boundary, because you will see a lot of things that you may not agree with, but it's not in our, I guess, description to fix everything. So I guess my advice would be to just come in with a good mindset, a strong mindset, and have good boundaries, and make sure that while you're working, and when you get out of work, you leave everything from work at work, because it can be difficult on you and it can be difficult on your family if you bring all the overwhelming feelings back home.
I can imagine. I just want to pause a little bit before moving to the other questions. I really admire your work and the type of nurse that you are, and also the type of nurse that you represent, because unfortunately I have to experience that when my mom passed away a couple of years ago. I think that it was 6 years ago now. It was really a huge difference between the doctors versus the nurse. And it's like, oh my goodness, if that nurse, I can recall it vividly, like if it was yesterday, the smile and the compassion of that man that didn't have enough sleep, and he was so present. And yeah, he hugged us, and as a family, he was super supportive. And he was so full of love. I have to ask, I mean, how do you do that? If you don't know me, yes, but I knew your mom, it was super good and this and that. Yes, but you don't know her at all. Yes, but this is the reason why we are here. I mean, this is our purpose, this is our calling. And oh my goodness, and we both start crying. I can imagine how a day in your work is like, but can you tell us what is the most rewarding thing, or what brings you joy right there?
Man, I always get that remark or that expression of, how do you do this? How can you see people dying and show up the way that you show up, you know? And for me, it was more of, as I mentioned before, I love to serve. And so the serving part of my role as a hospice nurse is the rewarding aspect. I mean, if I can tell you everything that I know and how I see your loved one and educate you in every step of the dying process so that you're able to grieve properly and enjoy the last few days with your loved one, I will try my best to make that happen, because that's how it should be. Some people need and deserve to die with dignity. The only way that they can do so is if we as hospice nurses provide that death and dying care. And along with that, it's impossible for the family not to get to know you in a deeper level when they are in a deep situation like that. And so that aspect of hospice nursing is so rewarding to me. If I can tell you how many times like someone has said, because of your help, my loved one died peacefully, that's everything for me. Like, that's it. And I don't even need to hear it every time someone dies. If one person tells me that, I did my job right.
Wow, amazing. So speaking about leadership, what type of leader are you or wanted to be?
Part of my nursing history has been managing. Anybody can be a manager, right? But not everybody can lead a team. And so when I realized that management was not the way I was going to lead, I quickly left that job and I sought ways to lead people without being their manager. And I feel like part of the way that I lead is through setting an example and living that example. Because I can tell you so many things and give you so many tips and advice and all of that, but if I'm not living that advice that I'm sharing, I'm not doing you any service. And so I always think about that, like, I put myself in your shoes. I am like you, Val, in the sense of being very empathetic. I feel your feelings. I can tell if you're not having a good day, and I give you the time and the space to, do what you have to do. And then I come back and I'm like, is everything okay? Because I only wish that as I was growing up, somebody would ask me that. And I don't think I had anyone in my childhood tell me, is everything okay? Or ask what I thought. I was always told what to do and what not to do. And so That's why I don't tell people anything in regards to like, you should do this or you shouldn't do that. I don't put limits on my kids. I let them be who they are, because I feel like, obviously my childhood impacted the way that I lead today. But like I said before, if I want to live by leading, I want to live by setting the example that the way that I'm living life is the way that I get all mixed up with my words, but it makes me excited to talk about leadership, because that's something that I really, really love, and if I can be the light in someone's life, then I wanna help that.
Amazing. I love it. So here in the show, in the podcast, Coffee with Val, we have a theme, a motto that is connected to the music, of course. Release your own sound. Why not? What can you tell us to encourage the audience, whether they are workers, students, leaders, women, people that want to thrive, let's say, or succeed, to put a word?
Honestly, for me, the biggest advice that I can give somebody that wants to go for the thing, for the project, for the podcast, for the book, is to do what you love. Like, just step into that. What brings you joy? What brings a smile to your face? If you were to think about that project, are you smiling while you're thinking about it? Because honestly, I think that's the most rewarding thing that you can do for yourself, and forget about all of the outside noise. I feel like a lot of us are held back because of the fear of what others think about us. And honestly, I feel like people, especially now, society is so involved within their own thoughts, thinking about themselves, to worry about what other people are doing. So that was my thing. I was held back by so much fear of what others think. A lot of my life situations happened of fear. And so I want to invite you to do things not out of fear, but out of joy, out of happiness, out of love, because that's really going to bring enjoyment in your life and in your project.
Amazing. I love it. One of the things that I love about Sol is that besides the fact that she's a nurse, I think that now she has a master's. She, is a mom, of course, is a friend. She never stopped working outside the work, creative projects. So, speaking of which, stepping into your calling podcast. Why did you name your podcast with that name?
I love this question because my podcast came out last year. So we are in 2024. So it came out in 2023. But the idea of having a podcast started in 2019. So it took me 4 years to finally step into my calling and release and publish the podcast. If I had done the podcast for 2019, I would have named it something completely different. And and so I think that it was the perfect timing to release it because of all the changes that went in those 4 years that happened in my life. Within those 4 years, I gave my life to Christ. And so as the years had gone by and getting to know him, that phrase was continuously in my head. And you're right, I have a lot of things that I do outside of work, but that's because God has told me multiple times, this is where you need to be now. And then in another season, he'll tell me, this is where I want you now. And so through all of those situations, I've learned to step into what God has called me to do and to do it without fear. Because like I said before, I lived life through fear, through the lenses of fear of what others thought about me. And so stepping into your calling is more of of reassurance to me. I listen to the podcast myself because I feel like there's a lot of wisdom from the people that I've interviewed. And so that's why stepping into your calling came to be, because I decided that I was no longer going to live in fear, and I was going to step into what God had called me in the season that I'm in, which has changed as the time has changed.
That's amazing. I mean, normally if you speak with another creative, they will tell you, oh, you know what, to remember that I wrote a song, and to remember that I made a painting, and now you made a podcast. So that's the irony. Okay, so for people that don't know you yet, you can check that out in Apple Podcasts. Then Sol is going to give us all the details. Stepping into Your Calling podcast with Sol Lagunas. She has so many episodes, so you can check the topic and see which one do you want to listen first. And the one that caught my attention was my first speech episode. So tell us about it. How do you get there? Because I know that you talk about the mindsets that you had to have, gratitude and embrace the change, but at the same time that you had this podcast, right? Stepping into your calling, moving, letting fear holding you back, but all of a sudden you were invited. Maybe you didn't want to say no, but you had to put into action this step into your calling, sharing about yourself. So tell us about it.
First of all, I was asked to speak for the first time ever, and that's why the podcast was my first speech ever, because it was at a mom group event where I was invited to speak regarding how to start the project, how to do it, and where to begin, what advice I would give somebody that was starting something new. And so I immediately, I was excited for it, but immediately after the excitement came the imposter syndrome. Like, who do you think you are to stand in front of people and talk about this? What have you done to, prove that you're an expert in this category? And those thoughts kept going in my head constantly, but it really was about the mindset shifts and initially being grateful for the opportunity to share my testimony and share my story, because I feel like everyone has a story that somebody else can learn from. And so of course I went, I did my speech, and in one situation, and this is part of the testimony that I shared with the ladies in the e-group, and Val, maybe you remember, but I shared that I wanted to do a prayer. I wanted to do a prayer for the ladies in the mom group, and the enemy was telling me that if I prayed, I would be rejected. And rejection is one of my triggers from childhood, and it's been something that I continue to work through, because a lot of the things that I put out, even though it's without trying to step into my calling, there's battles that I fight with in order to release the product or the creation. But that was what the enemy was telling me. He was telling me that, if I prayed over the ladies, I would be rejected immediately. And so during the speech, I had the option to pray or to end my speech by saying thank you to everyone and walking off the stage. And what I ended up doing was the prayer, because, God, even though the enemy was talking, God spoke louder, and he told me that those people needed to hear what I had to pray for. And so after my prayer, I felt the Holy Spirit because I was shaking. I mean, it was just something else, you know? And I got a few moms that came up to me afterwards and they were like, that prayer was exactly what I needed to hear.
So no one rejected you?
Yeah, no one rejected me. How silly, right? But yeah, that's my first speech ever. I recommend that you listen to it. I feel like it would help anyone that hears it. Okay.
Yes. So we are almost wrapping up. So we have some rapid fire questions. Okay, are you ready? Vacations favorite place?
Florida.
Okay, nice. Favorite time of the day?
My favorite time of the day are the mornings. Yes.
Oh, morning person. Wow. I'm the all day person or night person. Okay, best coffee ever or best place to go and take a coffee when in Chicago?
Well, I'm not a coffee drinker, but recently I went to a coffee shop that is woman-owned, and it's a small business. It's located in Bridgeport, which is in Chicago land area, and it's called Stockyard Coffee House.
I love it. I think I should try it and then visit you. Okay.
Yes.
Favorite book?
My favorite book is the one book that initially changed my journey of mindset, which was Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Favorite movie?
The Notebook.
Okay, classic. Best quote? It could be from a movie, from, I don't know, anything.
I know, I should have thought about this when I read the question, but I'm looking for it right now. I'm sorry.
Okay. No worries.
It's not a quote. It's more, well, I guess it is a quote. It's Psalm 139:14. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well.
Love it. Wow. Right. Best advice you were given and be given.
Something that I recently read, and I take it as advice because I'm gonna write it everywhere, is know your why and fly, girl, fly.
Amazing. And your motto?
Step into your calling without fear.
Go check it out, the podcast, please, guys.
And the best advice I can give is to really work on your mindset. And it could be your personal journey, how you work on your mindset. But I feel like mindset is everything.
Since we're just closing, I just want to say thank you, Sol, for being here, for being in this conversation, Coffee with Val. I really enjoy it, every part of it. I mean, I told you that you're a really deep woman, but also so kind, humble, and sweet, that you also love helping other people and other women. In many cultures, if you help a woman, you're kind of weak. But I think that the stronger we become is when we help each other, and if we can be the encourager for the other women next to us, whether she's 15 or 50, our mission is accomplished. And I saw that portrayed on my mom, on my sisters, and I saw that on you. So thank you for not holding anything back. I wish the best of the endeavors in your podcast, and please tell us where people can find your podcast, your materials, your projects, your socials.
Absolutely. So you can find the Stepping Into Your Calling podcast anywhere where you listen to your podcast. So that could be Apple Podcasts, that could be Spotify, iHeartRadio. You can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, as Sol Lagunas. So yeah, let's connect.
Amazing. All right, so we're wrapping up, guys. Thank you for joining us in another episode, Coffee with Val. Yeah, let's stay in tune.
Bye.
Have a nice one. Bye bye.